Good morning. Good morning to all participants here in the online environment, but also, of course, on the ESA Web TV live stream. Thank you for joining this English language press conference today. We would like to share today the initial figures of the application to ESA's astronaut selection. The current astronaut recruitment campaign is the first in 11 years, and ESA is looking for new astronauts who will work alongside ESA's current astronauts in future space exploration. You might have heard about it. The vacancy or the vacancies, I have to say, plural, has closed on Friday at midnight, and it was open for 2.5 months. The figures we're going to present today are not final yet, so they are not the ultimate figures, but they will already provide a very good insight regarding the most important numbers and in particular also the spread of applications across the member states. I am joined here today by Antonella Costa from the Human Resources Department at ESA and her colleague Lucy von der Tas, who is the head of talent acquisition. Also with us today is David Parker, ESA Director of Human and Robotic Exploration, and Guillaume Baer, a team lead from the European Astronaut Center in Cologne. And last but not least, I am joined by ESA Director General Josef Aschbacher, to whom I would like to give the word now. Good morning, Josef.
Yes, good morning, India. Good morning, everyone, and thank to everyone for joining this press briefing. Just a very few words on my side to introduce this session, but the highlight will be reported afterwards in terms of the numbers of people that have applied to this job. But this is quite an important press briefing which we have here. Let me but say a few words, and a few words really mean that I would like to recall that this is really a very exciting week which we have. Yesterday we had the signature of the FFPA, a very important milestone for the cooperation between the European Union and ESA, the European Union also including USPA. And this was the signal of a fresh start between the cooperation of these two institutions, and a really important element which was discussed yesterday. Today, we have the kickoff of a very important historic campaign to inform you about the numbers of applicants that we have received, which are quite impressive. And this is really a very exciting moment for many of you to hear how many people have applied. And this is, I think, for many applicants also a very important moment to understand how many of their competitors have applied and see how the chances are of getting one of these very important jobs as an astronaut. Exploration, as you all know, in Agenda 2025 is a priority. It is part of the vision which we have expressed as ESA, but also as space community in Europe. And exploration is, of course, a very visible element, because there you see the astronauts and the exploration of our activities beyond our planet Earth into other bodies of the solar system, and this certainly is a highlight in every agency's work, and certainly the astronauts are the symbol of making this exploration a reality. And when they come back and talk about their missions, it's always fascinating and exciting, and therefore this selection of the next generation of astronauts is really a very important point. We are going now then through the selection process, but I think it is also important to realize that this ambition, which is expressed in Agenda 2025, will probably be realized by the candidates that are being selected from this process here at the end of next year. And they are probably the ones who will do what we hope our politicians will express as a very important ambition for European space. Let me close my part and really thanking all of the applicants who have applied to this post for the time and for the effort that you have already put into your application. We appreciate your patience as our team works to ensure a fair and a thorough process, and we remind you and anyone that has an interest in space that being an astronaut, of course, is a golden opportunity, but it's not the only opportunity in ESA. We do hire quite a number of new colleagues in the coming years based on the retirement wave which is ahead of us. About 500 new staff will be employed in the next 5 years. And please do have your eyes open for also other opportunities in ESA that will come in the months and years to come. So I thank you from my side, and I hand back to you, Nina, and listen all very carefully and with great attention to the numbers that will be released very shortly.
Thank you very much, Josef. Dave, could you remind us again, why are we actually looking for new astronauts? We already have quite a few ones and very good ones on top of that as well.
Yeah, it's a good question, Nina. Why are we recruiting new astronauts now? Well, the simple answer is because we have work to do in space. We have work to do exploring space and also using space as a place to live and work. And so we need to use space. We have been living and working in space now for 20 years for the International Space Station, but there's a lot going on right now. The space station has been continually occupied for 20 years, but right today, our astronaut, Thomas Pesquet, European astronaut, will be exiting the space station for a third time as part of upgrading the power systems for the space station as we go forward. Can we put on display mode, please, Lorraine? And next week we launch the European Robotic Arm, which is a fantastic piece of European technology that will be mounted on the outside of the space station to support the astronauts. And then meanwhile, my teams are out in the Cape at Florida right now preparing for the launch of the first Orion spacecraft to prepare our exploration of the moon. And we have our robots exploring Mars today, but we have this horizon goal of humans going there as well. And so with this sequence of exploration of the solar system and living and working in low Earth orbit, we've got a lot to do. So that's the reason why we're recruiting new astronauts. Can we have the display mode, Lorraine, please? And I hand over perhaps now to Lucy to tell us about where we are in who we were looking for in the recruitment process.
Thank you, Dave. Indeed, we can say a few things about who we are actually looking for in terms of astronauts. So the first group of astronauts that we're looking for are between 4 and 6 career astronauts who will join the ESA staff workforce as permanent ESA staff members. We're looking for an astronaut reserve of up to 20 people. These are people who will not immediately be hired by ESA, but will remain with their current employers until a flight opportunity is identified for them. And we're looking for at least one candidate with a physical disability to join the Para-astronaut Feasibility Fly project. And I'd just like to recap very briefly on the 3 main requirements that we had listed for our candidates. The first main requirement was the nationality of one of the ESA member or associate member states participating in the astronaut selection. A second requirement is a master in a STEM subject or medicine or a degree as a test pilot or test engineer. And the third hard requirement was a minimum of 3 years experience. So now I'll hand over to Antonella, who will talk us through the next stages of the process.
Thank you, Lucy. As Nina already mentioned, the 2 vacancy notices were published on the 31st of March, and last Friday, the 18th of June, we reached our closing date. Until the new class of astronauts will be announced, which is currently foreseen for happening in late 2022, ESA's astronaut selection process consists of 6 key stages. Actually, now, while we are talking, a dedicated team of HR professionals is already working on the screening, which is exactly the first step of this process. During this phase, applications will be assessed or are currently assessed on the basis of all the documents submitted, the application form, as well as the screening questionnaire that all applicants have been requested to complete online as part of their application process. The next phases of this selection process foresee the psychological tests, followed by practical and psychometric tests. Then there will be the medical selection, followed by 2 rounds of interviews. So it is quite a lengthy process. We know this, but it is a very exciting journey that we are doing together. It is important to remind that candidates will be notified at the end of each stage if their application has been successful in progressing to the next step.
Thank you, Antonella. I would now like to give the word to Guillaume Vert, who will talk us through, I think, what you're all waiting for. And these are the numbers, basically the preliminary numbers, the results of the astronaut selection, the first part of it after the closure of the vacancy notice. Guillaume, the floor is all yours.
Muted.
You're muted, Guillaume. Your audio's off.
Sorry.
It's a suspense.
Sorry. Yeah, actually the numbers were also to be a part of the presentation. I think Dave wanted to present them. Maybe just a few words about the selection process and the application process that we have seen there. It has been an interestingly challenging process in view of the numbers of astronauts and candidates that we have seen. As you see on screen now, we have got an incredible response on this call. More than 22,000 candidates have applied, which is 260% more of what we had in 2008. So it's a tremendous increase. That really shows to me that space has really now penetrated the culture in Europe. And many people are now interested and looking into career in this area. That's an absolutely marvelous novel and news on that. It's really something that we, an answer to that extent was not something that we expected. We wanted to have more than in 2008, but that much more is really impressive. So thanks to all the candidates who have spent time applying to this job. So we have much more application. We have also application coming from many more countries than before. We do also have not yet the detail, please. We have so much more applications than from many more countries than before. It's also linked to the increase in the membership of ESA, of course. But we have also increased in the traditional, in the oldest member states that we have. So and the next really good news is the increase in the participation of women into this call. We have gone from 15% to 24%. It's going up to 36% of feminine application in different countries, in some countries, which is a marvelous news too. That's we wanted really to increase the feminine representation in the astronaut corps and to have such a response from the community of interested person in Europe is really good. We will talk about the detail a bit later. These figures, as it was said before, are not yet final. We are still cleaning the numbers. There are a bit of applications which are also have a complex nationality representation. We do have also applications which were put as placeholders. Some are really funny in terms of names, and are really thanks for the creativity of applicants for what they have given us. But it does give us a bit more work in order to make sure that the numbers that we are presenting are correct. You will receive finalized numbers in a pretty short or pretty near future. But of course, it needs a bit more work to do that. Dave,
Thank you, Guillaume. Is there anything, Dave, from your side that you would like to add to the numbers?
Yeah, let's go back to the previous slide maybe, and I think it's very important to see that this dramatic increase in the number of women applications, which is great to see, and actually it reflects the greater number of women applying to jobs in ESA in general. So there's been a strong upward trend, and it's reflected in the applications to the astronaut side. And then the other thing to highlight are the 257 applications for the astronaut with disability. So this is a possibility to join our para-astronaut feasibility project. Again, we didn't really know what the response would be to this particular call. It's absolutely experiment. We said when we announced it, we had many open questions. Would we get applications for this position to work with us on preparing the road for a person with a physical disability to fly to space and do a useful mission? Well, we have that first question answered now with an impressive 257 applications, and with 60 of them being women, so roughly in the same proportion as the applications in general. So that's really exciting. So thanks, Nina.
Thank you very much, Dave. Joseph, do you want to add some final words before we're opening for the Q&A? Your first reaction to the numbers?
I mean, my first reaction is it's stunning. This is probably historic, having so many applications for, at the end, a handful of jobs. I think this is really showing that the competition is high, but I really wish every single applicant all the best of luck. It is a long process, as we have just heard, but it's probably one of the most exciting jobs everyone can think of. And I'm very thrilled of having seen these numbers. I think it also shows that space is very high on the agenda of young people. It is a dream job, being an astronaut, and this is the best proof what we have just seen. So yes, it's fascinating to see these numbers.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And I will now open the floor to questions, because I think that's why most of you are here. The detailed numbers and the detailed figures are also available in a few minutes on the ESA website. You can download them there. This will be published together with the press release and together with all the details that you might be looking for. So do not worry if now you didn't catch all the little details that were shown on the screen. I can see that there was already one question or several questions in regards to Lithuanians' performance in this astronaut selection. Lithuania had a bit of a special role in this one. Dave, do you want to go a little bit more in detail here, also why we mentioned Lithuania and what the results were for them?
Exactly. Thanks, Nidia. We deliberately put it on the slide to attract the attention. Yes, indeed, Lithuania became our latest associated member state of the European Space Agency just right at the end of May this year. And that was one of the reasons why we slightly extended the open period for candidate astronauts to apply to our call. And yes, indeed, we were delighted to see 80 applications from Lithuania. So just in the last few weeks before the closing date. And actually what we saw was a lot of people applying in the very last moments before the closing date. And so that's really exciting to see the response of Lithuania. So thank you for all the colleagues who applied from that state. It's great news.
Yeah,
thank you.
Nina, the question was also about the performance of the candidates. It's a bit too early to come into detail now about how candidates perform in which area, because we are currently only screening the applications. But it's really interesting to see that in such a short time, that many candidates from a country would mobilize and apply, and that's really impressive.
Thank you, Guillaume. I see there is a question here from Nicholas Martin, who is asking how many of those that have applied now will now go into the next round.
I can give a few details on this. The next round, it's not yet really defined, but we are planning to allow 1,500 candidates to access the psychological test phase. I know these numbers might seem very small compared to the ones that we have just heard about the overall number of applicants, but we still have to keep in mind that we are linked to time and cost aspects, and it's a great improvement in numbers, also considered that in the previous selection we had a lower number of applicants who were allowed to go to access the test phase.
Thank you, Antonella. I see there is a question from Jonathan Amos. Jonathan, can you hear us?
Yeah, Nina, can you hear me? I hope
yes,
so.
very well, loud and clear. Welcome.
Excellent. Yeah, fantastic. This is a couple of questions, I guess, which is worth stating just to put people's minds at rest. I don't want to dwell on the website issues, but it's probably worth stating again, if you can, that you believe you've captured everybody's applications correctly through the applications process. And also to state that there is no tie in your opportunity to become an astronaut. There's no tie to the amount of money that your member state gives to Dave Parker's optional program. You know, Germany, as we know, contributes most. Germany may have very excellent candidates. I don't know, they absolutely will. But there's no suggestion here that, for example, Germany would get 40% of the opportunity simply because they contribute something like 40% of the human spaceflight program.
Yes, I can confirm there is no formal linkage in that way. Germany is contributing about 29% of the exploration program. That's correct. But there's no formal linkage. And
the website issues that you experienced through the applicant process?
Yeah, so indeed some candidates experienced some technical issues. So there was a display issue where some information entered by candidates appeared to them as if it was changed by the system, whereas it's actually unchanged and correct in, as it were, the back office as viewed from our side of the screen. So we believe all applications and their content are safe and correct. And we informed the candidates as soon as we could on the last Friday, 18th of June, that we had received the correct information. They shouldn't worry. So, and indeed, some candidates would have seen that their application was automatically disqualified, and all these applications were reinstated manually in the system. And again, the candidates informed accordingly. So data is stored correctly in the database. But it's why we're taking a while to work through all of the data and make sure it's all correct, Jonathan.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I don't like heights, so I didn't apply. So.
Me neither.
Thank you. I would now like to give the word to Dirk Wagner. Dirk, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning.
Very good. Good morning.
So I have a question regarding these overwhelming numbers, this overwhelming interest in becoming an astronaut when you compare it to the last selection process. So my question is, do you think you will make it until the end of 2022 to select the candidates, to select the new candidates for the astronaut corps, or will the selection process probably take longer because you have so many applicants now, perhaps more than you expected? Thank you.
Yeah,
I can answer this one. Oh, Guillaume, please, Guillaume.
Okay, thank you, Antonella. No, this selection of this order of magnitude is certainly a project and has managed as a project. So we do have very correct estimates on the time that we need to perform each part of the selection. So currently we are on schedule and we plan to remain on schedule and to start the testing in due time. The only unknown that we have, and that's one of the threats that we have on this project, is the COVID situation, which might, of course, stop or hinder somehow the travel of the candidates going to different test facilities. We have taken that into account, and in the planning that we have announced, we have already included margins to take care of these aspects. But we are reasonably confident that we will be able to finish the selection by N22 as announced.
Thank you, Guillaume. I see there is a question from Sulfika Abani. Not sure I pronounce this correctly. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I've also got sort of like a group of questions. I just, one for clarification, I want to know whether the figures for the candidates with disabilities are being held separate from the figures for, let's say, the general figures of where you've tallied it up, split between male and female candidates. But then that's sort of just a technical question, but I want to also just basically find out what sort of roles do you have in mind for the people with disabilities, you know, and how does that tie in with your future vision for space? Like, is it, you know, more focused towards the ISS if the work goes beyond 2028, or is it more gateway, or is it more ground-based jobs for people with disabilities? You know, when will that all start? I think that's the sort of stuff that we're really interested in finding out, because you've got so many more candidates now than you did in 2009, and yet, if I've understood correctly, you know, you came away with, like, what was it, almost 10 candidates, I think, in 2009, and now you're aiming for 4 to 6. So with so much work to do, so many more candidates, how is this all going to fit into your future vision for ESA and space? Thank you.
Maybe I'll go for that, and Joseph, you may want to say something about the overall vision and ambition that you're setting out for the agency, including exploration, first of all.
No, thanks. On the future vision, of course, this is all future, and therefore it has yet to be consolidated through decisions by the member states. But what I certainly would like to achieve and raise discussion is among the top political establishment in Europe, and to see what does Europe want in space, and what is the big ambition of Europe in space. And this, of course, includes space exploration, not only, but certainly space exploration is maybe a very visible element of this. And this is a discussion I would like to raise at the summit next year, spring next year, where we hope that politicians at the top level will stand up and say, look, we have noticed that many nations are now going into space, have their own astronauts. We have just witnessed ourselves that China has sent 3 taikonauts to their space station. Of course, you see many times NASA bringing astronauts to the space station. The same applies to Russia, and maybe India and other nations coming up. And I think what I really would like to raise is, what does Europe want in terms of exploration? Where does Europe want to stand in this international landscape? Also considering that Europe is a major economic power, political power in the world, and space is a very important aspect of this strategic orientation of our continent. And yes, astronauts and astronaut selection is a key element of this. And I would hope that the candidates selected in this call will have opportunities to realize this vision. And if you ask me what this vision is, certainly the space station, I would say that's almost the obvious one, but certainly having in mind that also the gateway and the moon are destinations of the future, and eventually, but this of course is further away in time, eventually beyond, and beyond means certainly towards Mars as a longer term ambition. And this is something where these astronauts might actually play an important role in doing exactly that. I don't want to preclude anything of the decisions of the future, but this call is certainly linked to realizing this ambition.
If I may offer some complementary comments to that. First of all, there is a slide somewhere which we didn't show of the detailed preliminary data for the astronaut with disability, including the breakdown by country. If that can be brought up quickly, that would be helpful. But it's clear that we want the astronaut with disability to do a real job. It's not about being a space tourist, as it were. So the astronauts are doing science and technology aboard the space station. So what we want to establish is the feasibility for the astronaut with disability to also undertake meaningful science. To get to that stage, we do need to do the feasibility project to work with the selected individual to prepare such a meaningful mission. But the idea is that happens in the next few years. To answer another question, in our last call we selected 6 astronauts, not 10, and it's been a long wait for this latest call. I think the level of excitement and enthusiasm demonstrates that space exploration and human spaceflight is really interesting to people in Europe. We see the excitement around the world, and therefore I think we would hope to have calls a little bit more often for astronauts going forward. And then in addition, we have this astronaut reserve, additional up to 20 people who could undertake additional missions as they come along. So we're trying to give ourselves some flexibility for an exciting future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joseph, and thank you, Dave. Did that answer all your questions?
Yes, it did. And thanks for the correction.
You're very welcome. I see there are one or two questions from Niam Shaw. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just interested for the smaller countries. Did you get representation from every member state? And just because that's a quick yes no answer. But the other one is, say for instance, you get amazing applications. Is there any opportunity to extend your reserve candidacy from 20 to, say, I don't know, 40, 50, 100?
It sounds like you want to be on the reserve list yourself, I think. I think that's the
What? I don't know. I don't know what you mean, David. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I can tell you that we got 270 applications from Ireland. So yes, all 25, the 22 member states and the associate member states, making 25 in total, applied. Just we don't accept applications from Canada, which works closely with ESA because they have their own separate program. But ultimately, the numbers we choose are eventually above my pay grade, as I always say. It becomes eventually a decision of the Director General. But bear you in mind.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Plenty more questions to come. I would like to give the word to João Tome, or Tom, if I pronounce it correctly. Can you hear us?
Yes, hello. Are you hearing me?
Good morning. We hear you very well.
Good morning from Portugal. I was wondering if candidates with analog astronaut background have more possibilities of going far in the process, and also if there's a quota for women in astronaut selection already in place.
Thank you. Maybe a question to Lucy?
Yes, and I think Guillaume will have some things to add to this. We are not working with quotas, we work with targets. And last time we had 15% applications from women, and in math, 1 candidate out of 6 is 15%. We're already extremely happy with the 24% number of applications, and that would be the minimum target for the representation of women. But obviously, we had an overall target of gender balance in the astronaut selection, and this is one way going forward. Now, you refer to analog astronaut background. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but I think I will hand over to Guillaume for this because I think he's in a better position to answer that particular question.
Yes, thank you, Lucy. Analog astronauts are those people who have participated in an analog experiment on the ground to simulate space missions. And of course, this is a kind of experiment that we were also asking questions about for the candidate to express that they had or if they had this kind of experience. This is something which will be valued in the screening process, but it is not either a requirement. So it was people having not participated in this kind of experiment will not be eliminated for that reason. But it is something that we will take into consideration in the evaluation process overall. So it's not a decision factor in itself. It will not grant an employment at the end or a selection at the end, but certainly something that we will take into consideration.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will read a few quite simple questions as well. There's a question if all figures are linked to nationality or residence country. It's the nationality indeed, Lucy, isn't it? Correct. And then there's a question if there's an overview of the applications from all the countries. Yes, there is. We have quite a detailed set of numbers and we can provide those to you. They were shown on the screen a moment ago, but of course we're sending them to you. They're also able to be accessed via the ESA website and via the press release, of course. Indeed, so there's quite some interest and questions on how many applications per countries. Is there maybe something, Dave, you want to say in regards to the member states' perspective or the associated states that participated, and a few words maybe also to those coming from the small member states, as they're usually a bit more concerned if their applications are seen and heard?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is that all the applications are treated equally during the process, and it's only when Guillaume and his team see the people face to face and the HR colleagues seeing them face to face that we find out the actual qualities of the individuals compared to their applications. So I think it's a very good distribution, frankly, of across the different member states. I mean, we see a few more from some states. There's a massive response from France in particular, but that's perhaps not surprising with Thomas Pesquet flying above our heads right at the moment. We see very strong applications from countries like Belgium, for example, so the medium states, but then they have a historic hero in Frank de Wind as the first European commander of the space station. But no, I think it's a pretty good distribution. I don't see any jumping out strongly compared to others. And yes, the smaller member states are represented. So you see 57 applications from Estonia, for example, 200 from the Czech Republic that has a history. Nearly 1,000 from the Netherlands is particularly strong, I would say. So there's a lot to numbers to look at. But at the end of the day, we will pick the best candidates.
Thank you, Dave. I see Dirk is still wondering about the mechanisms for European astronauts to get a ticket for a flight in the Artemis program. Can you say something about that one as well, Dave? Maybe in addition, he's wondering if it's like one service model delivered equals one flight opportunity for an ESA astronaut, or how does that work exactly? How is that making?
Great question, Dirk. So I don't want to go into all of the detail because it's a bit complicated, but basically we are contributing service modules as a barter to secure our opportunities to fly to the International Space Station. And on the other side, we are making contributions to the Artemis program. And as we decided at the last ESA ministerial, we are contributing 2 service modules and the 2 modules of the Lunar Gateway, so the habitation module and the refueling module. So that package of those 2 elements of the gateway and 2 service modules have secured us three flight opportunities on the Artemis program for astronauts to fly on Orion to the Lunar Gateway. We haven't made any decision on who those astronauts would be, or indeed which flights. But those discussions are starting on the which flights we will have European astronauts flying on Orion, but nothing will be decided in the near term.
Thank you. And here's a question for talent acquisition, I think, and for my colleagues in human resources. Indeed, very well spotted with the increase in number of ESA astronauts. Would that imply that you will also be recruiting for crew support, astronaut training, and other astronaut support roles in the coming years? So all the supporting positions around the astronauts. Maybe for Lucy, Guillaume, and Antonella to answer.
Okay, maybe I jump in. It's obvious that with the increase of the number of astronauts, we might have some more work here at the European Astronaut Center. Does that translate automatically in the increase of personnel requirements? That's something which still need to be seen. Actually, the team has been dimensioned at a time where the astronaut corps was even bigger than what it is now. But what is certainly something to be considered is, first of all, the operation of new programs and starting having also the exploration program on top of the International Space Station program. The second aspect was also addressed by Dave a bit earlier, which is the wave of retirements, and there are also a number of people who have started in this activity with the start of human spaceflight in Europe, so 30 years ago, and even more. And they are now coming close to the age limit, and there will be a number of replacement also in this area. So please stay tuned on the job opportunities at ESA or all the other entities supporting us for human spaceflight, both the national space agencies and all the companies who are supporting us. There will be in the future also some job opportunities for sure.
And I'd just like to compliment what Guillaume said. We are having a number of our colleagues retiring. It's a significant number between 2020 and 2030. There will be plenty of job opportunities. We have a lot of candidates. We've been extremely pleased to see the number of candidates. In fact, I think I can safely say I was quite blown away by the numbers of the candidates and huge interest. We've seen the number of applications increasing for ESA positions year on year. So I would encourage people to think about ESA beyond astronauts. We're a lot more than astronauts. Astronauts is a very visible program. It's a dream job, but we're a lot more than astronauts, and there will be a lot of very, very interesting opportunities to join ESA in other capacities in the coming years.
Thank you, Lucy, very nicely said. I see there's another question from Jonathan Amos. Is that correct, Jonathan?
Thank you, Nina. Yes, two parts again, aren't they always? Dave, can you give us a quick update on when Andreas Morgensen and Tim Peake might be able to get their second flight? As we see now, there are more opportunities to fly beyond just the barter arrangement that ESA has. The Italian Air Force, I think, has purchased a flight on Virgin Galactic. We've seen now NASA open up paid for visits to the space station. Obviously, SpaceX, Boeing, those vehicles have become available. I'm just wondering if that is a route down which ESA might go, or does that not represent value for money as far as the agency is concerned?
Okay, so to take the first part of the question, Jonathan, as you probably understood, we're having a kind of amazing run of astronaut flight opportunities. We're running together the flights of Thomas today and Matthias, as it were, tomorrow, so they will overlap aboard the space station later this year. And then Samantha Cristoforetti is making her second mission in 2022, so next year. So then there'll be a little gap in 2023 because basically we have rights for about one astronaut every, let's say, 0.7 of a year, 0.8 of a year. And then 24 and 25 we'll be looking to fly the second missions for Andy Mogensen and for Tim Peake. But then the question about buying additional flights is a little bit, if you go back to the rationale for the astronaut reserve, is to have a pool of, as it were, pre-qualified people who meet the standard to be good astronauts. And if opportunities arise, new opportunities for flights through the existing ISS program, or a member state wants to secure an opportunity as it were a national project, we can offer the services of ESA for the training of that individual to integrate them into the day-to-day work of Europe's human spaceflight program, and for example, the scientific program. And so, yes, part of the logic for the reserve is to have that flexibility to take advantage of opportunities if one particular member state wanted to, as it were, buy a flight over and above our nominal allocation in the ISS program.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Dave. I would like to give the word to Isabel Semedo. Isabel, can you hear us?
I can hear it, and you can hear me?
Very well, thank you. Go ahead.
I would like to know, now the candidates that were already selected, now there will be another stage for them until 2022. How many of those who are now selected will be at that stage at 2022? Is there any mark or number of astronauts preview line? Podem falar bocadinho mais baixo, desculpem lá. Thank you.
So to summarize your question, you're wondering what the next steps are in the process until we get to the end of 22 in the selection of the then candidates. Is that correct?
Is that correct? Yes.
Maybe a question to Antonella?
Yes, and of course, Guillaume is welcome if he wants to add anything. It's not easy to define the numbers at this moment, because it really depends on how many candidates will make it through the next step. So, as I already announced before, we plan to give the opportunity to 1,500 candidates to access the next step, which is the psychological test. It really depends on how many of them will be successful in that phase. And only when that phase is concluded, we will be able to know how many will go to the following step. Guillaume, I don't know if you want to complement.
I can
Just
confirm that.
repeat the numbers for the final stage. I think that was missing. That was in the question as well.
Yeah, at the final stage, we are hoping to have about 40 people going to the interview, so that to have enough persons to be chosen for becoming reserve astronauts or permanent astronauts. So that's the target at the end. In between the different steps and the numbers at different steps is something which is currently still a bit of a moving target, and I don't want to go into very exact numbers because we will not match them. What has to be understood is that we have been performing astronaut selection in Europe since a while, and not too often, but still since a while, and there are also other selections, and we do have a good body of evidence to understand what would be the passing rate at each stage. So we are looking into building up from what we want to achieve as a target at the end and trying to run backward and estimate how many people we need to have at each entry and at each step. So the 1,500s is a number that we will go to next step. It's a number with which we are comfortable. It might still move a bit. We might take a bit more. We might take a bit less. It will depend on what the quality of candidates that we find. Thank you.
Thank you, Guillaume. I see we're coming towards the end of this press briefing. I would like to give the word now to Josef again, and to summarize a bit the kind of feeling he takes away from this, his impressions, and maybe pass on a few final messages to all of us. Josef.
No, thank you, Ninia, and also thank you to everyone for really participating in this press conference. I think what we see is quite historic. Having more than 22,000 applicants is quite a number. We have all been astonished, and we have heard it before, what this means. It's much more than we expected, and it also, for me, is a very strong expression of interest and enthusiasm that people have across Europe in space and in becoming an astronaut. And this is, I would almost call it a historic moment for us to have so many applicants who want to become astronauts and who are interested in ESA program. So from that point of view, I'm more than satisfied. I'm extremely thrilled by these numbers and what I see, and this is it's just amazing. But let me put it also a bit in context, and this goes back a bit also to what I mentioned earlier. I mean, this week we had a great week. We have yesterday signed a very historic agreement also with the European Union and the FFPA. So to say that a lot of things happen in space, a lot of things happen in ESA, and this astronaut selection for me is really the symbol of showing this success and this, I would say, good news that we have been releasing recently on various fronts. So this is for me exciting. I really want to wish every candidate best of luck, because this is a very important career step or career move to put down the papers and go through the process and the applications. It's an experience by itself. And I do hope that the ones who do not make it still look at ESA as a possible employer. We have lots of opportunities coming up. I'm having a very ambitious agenda with new domains and new disciplines to be reinforced, mentioning quantum technology, artificial intelligence, which are some of the domains I would like to build up expertise, but also obviously the more classical domains of engineering. And I really look forward to seeing many of you either as an astronaut or applying to other posts. And this for me is a very good sign, and really thank everyone in running the campaign. And this is my own people in ESA, but of course you astronaut candidates who have applied and put down the nominations, because this is a very important step which you have undertaken. So thank you from my side.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joseph, Guillaume, Dave, Antonella, Lucy, and of course, my team and all the teams behind the screens. I would like to remind everyone that the numbers are also now available on the ESA website. You find there the numbers per country. You find also a split between male, female, a comparison with the last round from 2008, and you also find there the detailed numbers for the astronaut feasibility study. All of this can be found on our website, www.esa.int. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers, and I am sure we will hear from each other soon when we have the next update in the astronaut selection process to communicate. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.